Hello guys, this is Sanjay Shenoy from TN Digital Deepak and welcome to this brand new video. In the previous video, you learned how to understand and assess your business goals and how to align it with your social media goals and subsequently with your activities and resources and budget. So once you've done that, you have to move on to the next step of understanding your audience. And the first step in understanding your audience is by creating buyer personas. In this video, we'll be talking about what buyer personas are, why you should be creating buyer personas, and what are the key elements in a buyer persona. And I'll also running through a sample buyer persona that I've made and how you can do the same with existing information that you have. So let's dive right into it and find out how to create buyer personas. So, what are buyer personas? The textbook answer for this would be buyer personas are fictional or real, generalized representations of your ideal customers. Now, what does this mean? So, whenever you want to imagine your ideal customer, how would you describe that ideal customer? That is basically what buyer personas is. So, your ideal customer would have certain parameters, or he has to pass a certain number of criteria before you can call him your ideal customer. If everybody is your customer, then nobody is your customer. So it's very important that you identify who your customer is and who your ideal customer would be. And so basically the way I would like you to imagine this would be that there is a spectrum of customers and your ideal customer somewhere lies in between. So if you relate to that ideal customer, the extremes of the spectrum gets taken care of it by itself. So once you understand who your ideal customer is, then you can create content around it, create messaging around it, which will resonate with that particular customer and will definitely help you in converting more sales and more revenue for your company. Having said that, let's dig deeper into why creating buyer personas is so important. Well, the obvious one is that buyer personas help you understand both your existing and prospective customers better. So the more information you have about your customer, the more you can view it into your own product and make it more relevant to your potential customers. And creating buyer personas will help you understand that aspect of it, of both not only your existing customers but also your prospective customers. So like I mentioned before, once you've created buyer personas, you understand what their interests are, what are the certain parameters in which they kind of live their life in, and where there is an overlap between two different non-related interests, and how you can tie these two interests together and create better messaging and better content around this offering and around this similar interest that you see. Of course, once you know your customer better, the problems that he's facing, it'll help you in making your product development even more streamlined, even more relevant to the users, and also help you in creating better and faster iterations to your product. Most importantly, you'll begin to understand the specific needs, problems, and concerns that your customers might have. So the moment you understand this, the deeper you understand this, the better you understand this, the better your product becomes automatically. In the previous video, I've also mentioned that you have to make the product so relevant to your customer that the product basically sells itself. So that is the whole point of creating buyer personas here, to understand your customers so well that you need not even have to market it. I know it kind of sounds ironic, but ultimately that would be the ultimate objective for any marketer, to understand his audience so well that the product sells by itself. So let's find out what are the essential elements of a buyer persona so that you can use those parameters and create your own buyer personas for your own business, your blog, your social media page, or anything for that matter. So let's get right into the key elements in creating your buyer personas. First one is location. This basically, as the name suggests, tells you where your target audience lives right now. This is especially useful if your business is a local business, or sometimes it can help further if it's a hyper local business. Also, you can go a level deeper here and try to understand if the location that your target audience or your ideal buyer is living, the actual location that he is from, or if he is from somewhere else. This will help you understand the kind of cost that he is incurring in his daily life. That will give you a fair idea of the disposable income that he has. So the next one is age. What is the age range, or preferably the age itself? Now, when you're talking about age range, don't go too wide. Try to be as specific as possible, somewhere in between the 3 to 5 years range. So you can't say that my target audience is between the age of 22 to 35. It does not make sense, because if you think that there are indeed customers in that entire group of people, what you can do is you can split it down into smaller parts. So probably the first group can be 20 to 26, the next can be 27 to 32, the next can be 33 to 35 types. Just giving you an example. What this helps you in doing is it helps you in creating and crafting content around this particular audience. And obviously it goes without saying that a 22-year-old will not understand or comprehend your messaging the same way a 35-year-old would, or definitely a 35-year-old would not like his messaging and communication to be very jovial and very casual like the 22-year-old would like it to be. So if you're going for an age range, go for a short age range. This also helps in your Facebook advertising when you're setting up the ads. Make it into smaller groups, make it as specific as possible. The best thing for you to do here would be, if you have a specific age, create multiple buyer personas for multiple age groups, and that will help you creating content which is specific to that particular age group. Next one is obvious, male or female. The reasons or the motivation for buying for men can be completely different when it comes to female, and the reasons, the social situations can be very different, the financial situations can be very different. So all of these things make a lot of difference in terms of getting sales for your own product or for your own business. So very important to identify whether it is mostly male or mostly female, or a little bit of both, or if it's skewing towards one particular gender. Interest here, basically what I'm trying to say is, regardless of what that person is, regardless of what his interests are, make a list of all those things. Then what you might notice is that there might be a pattern, there might be a correlation between the kind of interest these people have and your product, your service, or your offering, or your organization itself. So when you find this pattern, or sometimes you might not find it also, which is absolutely fine, but when you find this pattern, what you can do is, there will be an overlap in terms of the interest that is completely irrelevant to your offering and to your offering, of course. So how can you bring an overlap in communication and in content during your messaging and communication? So this will help you understand what is the kind of person that he is, what is the kind of interest that he has, what does he do over the weekend, all of these things. Education level will basically tell you to what level is the person educated. Is he a bachelor's degree holder? Has he even completed education? Or is he a master's degree holder? Or somewhere in between? So again, this will give you an understanding of what kind of a job position he might be in, and also what kind of an income level he might be in. So if he has a double degree, there are a higher chance of him having a higher income level compared to a person holding a bachelor's degree. Of course, this is as I mentioned, a very generalized approach of creating buyer personas. It might be completely unique for your own business, for your own product. Feel free to experiment with this one. Again, this naturally progresses towards your job title. Where does this person work, and what kind of a job title does he hold? So will a job title and a particular company will tell you a lot about that person. What kind of a person is he? Is he a risk taker, or is he someone who takes decision in the companies, or is he like an individual contributor? A lot of things you can make out by having this particular information. Of course, it goes without saying that you will have a very fair idea in terms of what kind of salary he's drawing also. Which of course brings us to the next criteria, which is the income level. So when I say income level, you need to take into consideration all the other aspects that we just spoke about, and you just shouldn't be thinking about the income level, but more so rather think about the disposable income level that my person have. The disposable income is basically the money left with a person after taking care of all of his expenses, his needs, and a little bit of his wants, and still has some money left which he can spend. And this is the money that you're fighting for. This is the money that you're actually asking him to pay for, unless you're a commodity or a utility or a very basic need like education or something of those sorts. But most of the products, most of the offerings, most of the services come from disposable incomes. If it's B2B, that doesn't really matter, but if it's B2C, this matters a lot, because with the kind of disposable income that he might have, will he able to be able to afford your product or your offering? Relationship status, whether he is married or is he single, or does he have kids, all of these things again tells you a lot about his social situation, and whether he be the right candidate for you or not the right candidate for you as a customer. Languages, it's a very obvious one. So what are the kind of languages that he speaks? So if you want to craft content around a specific language, you can do that also. Say for example, our training courses, we are planning to offer it in different languages in the future. So because there are a lot of people out there who would want our training courses in different languages and not just English. And also you can make a mix of two different languages, which is pretty popular across social networks right now. When I say this, what I mean is you can like probably take Hindi and write it in English. Same thing can happen with any language that you can take, and automatically becomes English. So your communication can be English also if the age group or if the product is more towards the casual side. So knowing what kind of language they're comfortable with and what kind of languages that they speak, this can be really helpful. Also the kind of websites that he visits, or it can be books or it can be apps. You can replace this with whatever you want depending on the kind of industry that you are in. So this tells you a lot about his academic preferences, or the kind of information that he's seeking for, or the kind of information or infotainment rather that he is dwelling in. So tells you a lot about that person. The next two ones are the most important ones. What is motivating this person to buy your product or your offering or your service? What is the biggest motivation? What is that need for that user, or what pain point are you solving for that customer? So this buying motivation, if you make it a little personalized to this particular buyer persona, you will understand way better about your audience and your potential customers more than anything else. Again, if he is motivated but still not buying, what are the concerns that is stopping him from buying your particular product? It can be basically he might not be comfortable paying online, he might not be happy with the product, and since there is no mention of returns, he might not have a problem with that. He might have a problem with shipping, he might have a problem with a few negative reviews online, and he might want to just test out the product once. So many things, there might be so many things that might be stopping this particular person from going ahead with that purchase. So once you have all of this list, you would have created one single buyer persona. You need to try and create as many buyer personas as possible. The more you create, the more you understand, because each buyer persona is unique. Although we say that buyer personas are quite generalized, it is unique in its own way. It helps you understand different pockets of your own audience, different pockets of your own customers, and once you know these different pockets, you will be able to attract their attention and solve their problems the way it needs to be. So I will go through a sample buyer persona so that you understand how we go ahead and do something like this. And I also want to, before we go to proceed to the sample buyer personas, you might be thinking that why should we even do this? I mean, is this even like beneficial for us? But trust me, once you start doing this, you will know how beneficial it is, and you would stop shooting in the dark. Basically, you will know what exactly to do, how to do it, and how to go about doing it. So don't ignore buyer personas. Try to create as many buyer personas as possible. It's a very continuous and dynamic process. It's not something that you do it once and you just forget about it, unless your product or your company is not growing, of course. So let's just quickly take a look at a sample buyer persona, and which might help you understand how a buyer persona should look like. Okay, here is a sample of a buyer persona. What I've done is I've gone ahead and created a buyer persona for this course. I want to sell this course, and who would probably be one of my ideal customers. So let's just quickly go through the profile and try to see if we can extract as much information as possible from the information we already have. So I'm giving him a name. Name is Sachin Vora. He's about 30 years old. He's a male, of course. And from this information alone, we know that he possibly might be working for quite some time, and there is a possibility that he is married also. And if these are the cases, what might be the motivation for him to buy our product? Let's go further down and find out more information. So he enjoys watching Netflix, he enjoys going on weekend getaways, and he's also a big IPL fan. So this is what I was talking about interest. Now that I know that he likes watching Netflix, he likes going on weekend getaways, he's a big IPL fan. So there is a couple of things that I know here. If he is watching Netflix, that it means that he is willing to pay that extra amount of money. So that kind of is an indicator of the disposable income that he has. And considering that he's going on weekend getaways as often as possible also, that also shows that he has a certain amount of disposable income, and his priorities are a little bit of extremes, which is either you sit at home and watch stuff, or you go out and be out there. And is also a big IPL fan. During the IPL season, I know for a fact that he'll be very busy, he'll be engrossed, and he'll be completely distracted by IPL. And also all of these things tell us that the kind of content that I can create, the kind of communication that I can create, that I can potentially create to attract this particular user. He's an MBA in marketing, and he's currently the assistant marketing manager of a leading FMCG. So this is all we have in terms of the primary level of information about Mr. Sachin Vora. Let's see what other information that we have. His income level is around 10 lakhs per annum, and now considering all the information that we have and 10 lakhs per annum, I have a feeling that he does not have as much liabilities as I thought he would. And also he's married, so when he's married, his responsibilities increase automatically, the liabilities increase. Even then, he seems to have a good amount of disposable income, which means that there's a good chance that his spouse is also married and drawing a considerable amount of money in terms of salary. And he speaks English and Hindi, and his favorite websites is he usually watches Facebook. He's on Republic TV. Considering he likes cricket, he's on CrickBuzz and In Short. So all of these websites not only tell me a lot about him and a lot about the kind of content that he is consuming, but also this will give me an opportunity to advertise or write content for on these websites. So it can be Facebook. I can have the opportunity to advertise on Facebook, probably not Republic TV, but CrickBuzz and InShots definitely have an option for me to show my advertisement. If I'm retargeting this person, I can definitely use this as placements in all of these ad serving platforms. So the biggest buying motivation for Mr. Sachin here is that he feels like he's stuck in his career and wants to upskill himself for career prospects, better career prospects, and for a better pay. Now I now know his exact buying motivation, and I know a lot of information about him in terms of disposable income, which will allow me to price the course in such a way that it is very appealing to this person. So I know that he doesn't mind paying in the vicinity of 650 or probably a little more if it's a little more valuable, like a weekend getaway or things like that. So he doesn't mind spending, and he's already married. He's around the age of 30, but he still has a lesser income level, which is why he wants to buy this course to upskill himself and have a better career and probably move towards digital marketing rather than your conventional marketing. And of course, this might result in a better pay. What is stopping him, or what are the concerns that he has? His biggest concern is this viable for someone with conventional marketing experience? Will someone be coming from a regular conventional marketing experience find this particular course useful? Will he get a certificate after course completion? These are the things which gives us information. These are actually the kind of things that we take into consideration when we are planning courses, when we are thinking about these courses, and how to structure it, what is the kind of curriculum that needs to go in, and what kind of fundamental level that we need to go in terms of making them understand what is the pricing structure that needs to be put across, and what are the kind of examples that we need to give. All of these things come from these kind of buyer personas. We have multiple buyer personas like this, which help us understand who our target audience is and what their biggest buying motivation is and what are their concerns. And with whatever concerns they have, we'll try to solve them as much as possible. Of course, we can't solve all their concerns, and there is no way we can please everybody. So, which is why the most feasible concerns that we can solve, we'll solve it for our users and make our offering a lot more interesting for them. So this is how a sample buyer persona would look like, and this is how you infer information. This is how you model your offering. This is how you price your offering and all of that using these information. So that's basically how a ideal buyer persona would look like for this particular course. And there might be many more ideal buyer personas, but this is just one of them. I would strongly urge you to go ahead and create your own buyer personas. It can be just for your blog also. It can be for your the company that you're handling social media marketing for. Buyer personas can be used for anything for that matter. It can be used for not only social media marketing, it can be used for so many other aspects of marketing itself, and it is definitely being used. Basically, we are taking buyer personas from the conventional old school style of marketing to the new school style of marketing. So buyer personas has been around for a very long time. So go ahead, create your own. Now you have the ability to create these buyer personas. Speaking of which, how do you collect this information? For existing websites, if you have a website already, or if your client has a website already which has been running for quite some time, or if they have a Facebook page which has been running for quite some time, you can look into Facebook page insights and Google Analytics audience reports. It is basically gives you a very good idea in terms of who your audience are. I'll give you a very good example of how this has helped me personally in crafting better content. So in one of the companies that it used to work for, it was a fintech company. When I looked into Facebook page insights, what we realized is that 84% of our audience are men, and a good correlated number of them were our customers also. Most of them were men. So what this helped me understand is that there is one more thing that you need to understand. Women tend to share a lot more on social media compared to men. Men like to comment, women like to share. So men like to opinionate a lot compared to women. So to get content to propagate, it was much harder. So this kind of helped me change the whole content strategy around our social media and get them to engage using similar interests. Now, since I knew that most of them were men, most of them were in a particular age group, what are their interests, everything. So that helped me understand what are the kind of stuff that they might be looking for. So if you have an existing website, existing company, you can always like look into your Facebook page insights and Google Analytics audience reports. You have a ton of information from there. You can also use passive profiling or straight up ask the questions through a survey form. So passive profiling is basically there are multiple tools to do this. This is slightly advanced, so I won't go too deep into it. Probably in another video I will. But asking up questions in a straight up survey form pretty much solves your problem here. You can give them an incentivized coupon or a discount coupon or a free gift or whatever it is in return to the survey filling from your potential customers. This is the best way to seek information or collect information from your potential customers. You need to start with just one buyer persona, first of all. So even if you have just like a handful of customers, reach out to them, pick up the phone, call them up, ask them all of these questions, and try to fill up their personal profiles. And once you have, now you'll know what kind of customers. From that point, you can keep on building better and deeper buyer persona. So if you have potential customers, if you have existing customers, reach out to them, talk to them, and get all the information that you're looking for. Like I mentioned before, again, this is a very dynamic process, and you need to keep looping it back into the system in terms of your product development, your customer service, everything. So your buyers keep on evolving as your business evolves. So it is like a very symbiotic relationship that you'll be sharing with your buyers. So inevitably, this becomes a very dynamic process, and to a large extent a never-ending process also. So, and the more you understand, the more you loop it back into the system, the information, and the better and better your product keeps becoming. A good approach would be to build negative personas also to make your process even more clear. You would want to create a persona which you would like to tell, this is the kind of person that I would not want to sell to. Sometimes it's very obvious. If you have a men's apparel company, you would not want to sell it to the women, and which is straight up obvious. And what are the kind of women that you never would want to target? So building a negative persona also will eliminate a lot of confusions that you might have. So this also happens very dynamically as you go by. You might get to a point where you might want to pick and choose your own customers, especially if it's B2B. So if it's B2B, the need to create negative personas becomes even more important. Nothing of this works out. Build an ideal fictional buyer persona for a website. Who is that ideal customer that you want, and what does he do, where is he from, what is his education, what is his job, does he earn money, everything. Try to make this stuff up. He would be your ideal fictional character, but that is who you're targeting. And once you have pinpointed that persona or that profile, you will start creating everything around it, and it becomes much more clearer for you, and you'll start attracting exactly that kind of crowd. So the buyer persona that you're creating is representing all the rest of the people who are very similar to that persona. He is a representation. That is why it is called a generalized representation of your customers. So if none of these works out, create fictional buyer personas, which will also help you a lot, and you can fine tune as you go further. So that's about it in terms of buyer personas. I hope you like this particular video. Please go out there and create as many buyer personas as possible. The more you create, the more you understand your target audience, and the better you will be able to sell your products. And the more you know about your audience, the more streamlined your marketing, your communication, your messaging becomes, and obviously which will result you in lesser costs and higher revenues. So go out there and build your own buyer personas. Let me know what you think about this particular video. You can leave your feedback in the comment section, or you can shoot me an email at sanjay@digitaldeepak.com. Thank you very much for watching this. I'll see you in the next one.